Hello there. Today we're going to take a look at a 1v1 here in Forged Alliance. And it's not going to be one of the most longest games that we've ever seen, and that's deliberately so. We're going to see how that pans out. It's BRS DCCC97 and Saphed. It's on a 1v1. It's just gone down in the last few minutes here. We're casting this on the 20th of January 2023, and so while I try and pad out the waffling a bit while we come into the game, here we go. Let's increase the game sound there. Here we go. All right, so these players, if we take a look, Saphed over in red here, Cybran is 1654 rated, going first land. His opponent, BRS DCC, who featured the other day, don't forget the 97, going UEF in blue, is rated 1655. So just one rating point between these guys. This is on the 1v1 ladder. And so for this game to not last indefinitely, somebody somewhere makes a mistake. However, the shorter the game is going to last, the bigger the mistake that is. Maybe somebody makes a really good move. Maybe the counter to that really good move is the mistake. We'll have to see. And so let's see how this is going to get on then. So over here, let's take a little look at Saphed. Yeah, let's call him Saphed. 1654. So this guy just 1 point beneath. We see first land, then going to P-Gen, then on the max. Why the P-Gen first and not the mass? Well, if we zoom out, we see he doesn't have access to a Hydro. We know Hydro is very cheap to build. And so because he does not have that, and the power gens here, the Tech 1, much more expensive, there's no benefit to be gained by going mass first. In fact, he'd probably stall on energy if he did. That said, we do see here he's sending energies out on both mass, storage capture, and energy reclaim. Because when he claims these clumps of trees, it does get a tiny little bit of mass. There we see 46, but overall so far 368 on the energy, so it's about 7 or 8 to 1 energy versus mass. And we can see there now 464 versus 59, so expanding there in all directions. I'll take a look at DCC. His opponent here in blue, he's gone first and second land. And take a look at this, with just 2 P-Gen on, now gotten the third. That would have been a complete stall were it not for these NGs. We see he's got at least 3, if not 4 NGs that have been working on reclaiming clumps of trees. And that's enabled his economy to continue quite well. ACU staying in the middle, so no time wasted moving the ACU. He's using 100% build power of that ACU in the early game. Little run by then here over on the western flank, and looks like he is going to thread that on through. Saphed, not yet wise to the situation, is now wise. We see there, just showing up, and of course at this rating on ladder 1v1, yeah, he's seen it. There we see it. Saphed moving in, picks off a scout. There's a second scout here from DC97. I'm not sure if he intended on moving both those scouts up on the western flank together. I guess he did. Usually you'd imagine at least one of the scouts coming somewhere else, but now we see Saphed low on intel. Now that he's not going to have forgotten. He knows that somewhere over here there's a run by. He's sending more units in that vague direction to try and plug it off. But alas, we see here from his point of view, he can't see it. Now he does see it, and he's got the lock on there. We see that there's another unit here. That may or may not be the scout. And here we have the initial scout from Saphed, as well as the T1 bomber. You see the scout picks up the NG, and the bomber was immediately given the order to kill. There's the first one, and picks it up from DC97. We did see he had already queued up the second engineer. It's almost like a glitch, is this? Because it's... although that said, looks like he was given a... Yeah, so there we go. We see there the next order. Bomb picks it off. That NG that was moving over, very lucky not to get caught up in the blast. 2 bombs there from the bombers. 2 kills. And switching back over to the observer view now. Nice little pick up there from Saphed. And so far, certainly can't call it. DC looks a little bit more spread out, but that said, we've got this bomber here. Now with the third kill, as we've said, the units further away from the base, worth more there. And yeah, we saw the bomber to pick up a kill down here, one in base, one over here. And so this bomber is certainly paying for itself, and he's about to pick up another engine, I was going to say, but we see a little dodge there from DC97, not sure. And just going after an idle mechs there. So still, nonetheless, a very good bomber there from Saphed. DC now trying to repay the favour, and that there was quite big. We see it take out a bomber, 2 kills so far, and these bombers quite far from base. However, they do manage to complete the land factory, and so even though it is a bomb far from base, the fact that the land factory was able to get put down before they were taken out is very much in favour there of DC97. And it looks like APM tied up elsewhere. We do clearly here that DC becomes aware of the ACU, because he pulls away from this area, and with just a mechs and a land factory, you know, it'd be a perfect opportunity to try and clear that out, to try and, you know, park your units by the factory so that they can't be used. So he was well aware of the ACU. DC now pushing up on the eastern flank. There is a hydrogen spot there, but it's so far away from the base, it certainly can't be considered anything other than in the opening sequence. Yeah, you can't use that hydro in the opening sequence, and it looks like their lack of micro from DC, as well as superior numbers and micro from Saphed, that battle is going to go Saphed's way. And aside from the little run by here from DC97, gotta say that here on minute 6 minutes 30, things looking slightly better from Saphed overall. And if this run by gets picked up without inflicting any sort of damage, and it looks like it's going to, we've got no NGs or any sort of worthwhile stuff it can grab here. That said, you know, it does manage to take out one of Saphed's units. We've still got 3 here from DC97, and suddenly 3 turn into 1, and 1 goes down. And so, yeah, nice little pickup there from Saphed. That run by, again, one of the few things that was on the aggression side on DC97's, at least his play. Let's leave it like that. It was the only aggressive play. Here we see more of a defensive move from DC97, and ACU running into 4 or 5 tanks. Oh, Mantis there from Saphed. Nice pickup there. And not yet stabilized the forward lines. It is only a small map here. Of course, 1v1, even on a small map, you've got quite a front here to stabilize. Looks like around a 10 by 10. As Saphed taking advantage of that, and again, just 2 or 3 units pushing through. And we saw there, he led the way with that scout, so he knows not only is this worth a shot, but it's definitely worth a shot, because the scouts, you know, giving him the intel that basically, you know, there's nothing there to stop you. Going after the engineer there, so the engineer goes down. The resources the engineer put into that PD that never got finished go down, and then the mass point goes down as well. Things looking a little bit better for DC over on the eastern side. The question is he using these as intel? And I think he is. I don't see anything that he could have been chasing. Is he going to drop them down? Don't drop them down. And fighters going down for naught there. Inties. That's unfortunate, because DC up until that point, I would have said, had complete air dominance. Or at least it was at least 50-50. Well, it's no longer 50-50. Minor mistake. Saphed pushing through here. He's got Saphed is controlling both the corners and is deployed in the northeast, is deployed in the center. And so at minute 9, and again, this is not a very long game, but certainly at minute 9, it looks like things are starting to tip Saphed's way, both in terms of the areas that he controls That little mistake there from DC with the air, that tips air over into Saphed's air dominance, into Saphed's benefit there. And now, of course, Saphed is able to use his air dominance to start picking stuff off. Although DC, you know, still making nice trades there. We did see Saphed get the gun earlier on, and so Saphed now moving in minute 9, 20 seconds or so shy of the 10th minute. He's about halfway across the map with his ACU. Some very nice trades here for DC. Looks like he got some flak out, able to pick off the inties there from Saphed, so potentially restoring air balance. The problem is, if Saphed's ACU is coming over, we know he's got gun. He's currently got 4,000 energy. I'm almost certain that he'll be working on an energy storage at this point. Well, maybe just P-gens, and that's because to really make that ACU with gun work, especially when you risk running into Tech 2 units, we see the pillars here, and he should be wise to that if he was paying attention to Saphed, because of course his air went down to the Tech 2 flat. So it looks like DC97, his gamble, and we'll have to see it's going to pay off. He lost land, he lost the territory, was to rush Tech 2. The thing is, if you're going to rush something, you then need to use it a rushed style. You can't dilly-daddle with it, because otherwise all the benefit that you would have gained by rushing the said unit is lost in, well, just let it hang back and chill. I mean, think about it. If you rush a T3 bot and then stuff it under your mattress and never let it see the light of day, what was the point in rushing it? So here we see Saphed there with gun and got at least one overcharge in on the T2. DC97 recognises it, starts pulling back. He does have a couple of T1 point defense here, but versus an ACU with gun, that's only ever going to go one way. We see Saphed trundling on down to the southwestern corner, looking to cap off the mechs down there. And yeah, this now not looking good for DC. Did he manage to complete his gun? Well, he did now. And so this all looks like it's coming down to a little bit of a gamble. I'm surprised this point defense is still allowed to exist and is still getting kills when Saphed's ACU was there. Able to just shoot at it. Granted, a lot of those shots were going into the wall, but oh my goodness. There we go. Finally, with the overcharge from Saphed, takes down the point defense. That little delay will have bought DC97 at least 30 or 40 seconds to regroup. You can see he's trying to move forces. The problem is, if he doesn't engage here perfectly, Saphed's just going to be able to hang back almost out of range and tech up. That said, DC, again, with the time that was bought by the ACU going after the point defense, has been able to get up a couple of Tech 2 triads. Those 2 point defense are going to massively help, and Saphed now, well, I don't know. I don't see why DC had to push that. I feel he could hang back a little bit. I guess he feels like he had the advantage. Saphed now moving ways in on the eastern flank. And it looks like DC97 pulled everything over, at least for a moment. He does have a few units left on the eastern flank, but it looks like initially their job was to come over here. I think it was a panic move. Speaking of panic, Saphed now on full retreat. And I think well, looks like he's deciding to hang around a bit more. Now DC97 trying to pincer Saphed in with his units. The problem is, if he's not careful, DC's going to be the one that gets pincered. You see, he recognises the threat. He's desperate to try and get his units across. And he's one-on-one versus all of Saphed's army. Does DC have the E required to overcharge? Yes, he does. Well, he needs to start overcharging some of these T2 units that are so far able to say kill him for free is wrong. Ah, it's coming close. It's getting close. Well, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other here. DC, of course, with some tech. And the superior health commander, but suddenly runs out of units. And I don't believe it. Where DC97 looks so strong just a minute or two previous, you see how quick that collapsed there at the end. This by no means was over. It was one little mistake where I felt DC97, his ACU came trundling over here. Saphed, recognizing he can no longer push this position, pulls back both with his ACU and his army. And when DC97's ACU pitched up over here, well, there was only two choices that Saphed had. He either had to pull everything back and retreat, or cut across here and take out DC97's isolated ACU, and that's what he did. Of course, DC97 did have a few army units that were able to come through. The problem was there weren't enough and they were out of position. Then DC97, clearly tied up elsewhere, was unable to put ACU overcharges into Tech 2 units that were positioned around his ACU that were just shooting and shooting and shooting, getting rid of valuable hit points for what to me felt like no reason. If DC97 had even just 1 or 2 APM left, he could have overcharged a couple of those Tech 2 Rhinos there from Saphed. And that, A, would have bought him vet, and B, he would have had more hit points with it. I'm not sure the game would have ended there had that have been done. But again, these two players, very, very good. 1654, 1655 rated, as we see there. And Saphed taking the win. And Saphed, incidentally, the player who was 1 point behind. And so, these two players play each other for 1,000 times. You'd expect Saphed to win 499 of those 500. And yeah, until next time, I do got a slightly bit longer game for you a little later this evening. So make sure you're around for that. But until then, take care. Bye-bye.